We're 32 days away from the 2024 general elections. Hashtag Stop Galamsey now still on. Good evening and welcome to News Night. Tonight, Sir Sam Jonah criticizes government's decision to purchase past questions for students, describing it as a very first low.
Let me just say that all of us have to be troubled by the recent government decision to institutionalize the purchasing of past examination questions, papers, for distribution to students. This must be the very first law.
We have details as the UCC Chancellor expresses worry about the chew and pour graduates being churned out at the expense of critical thinking and innovation, making them unattractive in the job market.
We are training our future leaders to repeat or rehash their past, to rely on shortcuts, and to fear failure rather than embrace learning.
Meanwhile, the Education Minister has announced plans to make secondary education compulsory through free senior high school bill to drive higher enrollment rates.
92% of students in Upper East moved on from junior high school to high school. Upper West, 89%. That is the lowest in the north. But the lowest in the north is higher than the rate of any of the regions in the south.
And tonight, Attorney General moves to amend relevant laws to make Ghana the seat of arbitration in all contractual disputes involving the states, as he cites the vulnerability of arbitration to fraud and abuse.
I recently presented to Cabinet a proposed amendment to the State Property and Contract Act of 1960 to compel all contracts involving the state and its agencies as parties to not only stipulate Ghana law as a governing law, but also to have Ghana as a seat of arbitration.
We have details plus his revelation that several arbitration disputes involving Ghana could have totally collapsed the country's economy.
And in business, energy and automobile sectors drive dollar demand as Bank of Ghana steps up support to help deal with the recent pressure on the local currency.
And in sports, Bet Power announces plans to invest 7 million Ghana cedis into the Ghana Premier League and Women's FA Cup for 5 years.
He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table.
Kamala Harris is a radical left Marxist, rated even worse than crazy Bernie Sanders or Pocahontas.
And later in the bulletin, we are live in America as Big Brother decides on whether the Democrats will maintain power with Vice President Kamala Harris at the helm of affairs, or it's time for Republicans to take over, giving former President Donald Trump another chance. You want to stay with us for that all here on News Night. Plus your views and comments, 055-11-11997. And MFA, we start tonight with the very latest from the world of education.
And of course, we've been hearing from Sir Sam Jonah, is the Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. Sir Sam Jonah has criticized government's decision to purchase past questions for students, describing the act as a very low first. Sam Jonah adds that the act signifies the country's reluctance to embrace the future and our continuous reliance on the past.
Well, the business mogul says the decision to bypass questions for students conforms to our education system's memorization culture, also known as chew and pour. Mr. Jonah indicated that these practices have lowered the standard of the country's education and taught students to cut corners.
Let me just say that all of us have to be troubled by the recent government decision to institutionalize the purchasing of past examination questions, papers, for distribution to students. This must be the very first law. Regrettably, this decision is in itself formalizes a reliance on rote learning and memorization at the expense of content comprehension and innovative thinking. We are training our future leaders to repeat or rehash their past, to rely on shortcuts, and to fear failure rather than embrace learning. We are training them to cut corners, to replicate and recite instead of understanding, innovating, and producing. We are lowering the standards of our children's education. Ladies and gentlemen, at the entrance of a university in South Africa, the following message was clearly posted for contemplation, and I quote, "Destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examinations by the students."
And we know the government spent a total of 68.5 million CDs to procure over 1 million past questions and answers for senior high school students as part of the interventions to help them prepare for the 2020 and 2021 West African Senior School Certificate examinations. And the minister himself had revealed this to Parliament after questions were asked of him. And that's the criticism we're hearing tonight from Sir Sam Jonah on that particular subject. But he's also been talking about the National Service Scheme.
Well, for him, it's time for us to have a compulsory military national service to build character in the Ghanaian youth.
Concept of national service is commendable, but it must be looked at critically to ensure the building of character in all our youth. In this regard, I strongly advocate that we model our national service on similar ones in Finland, South Korea, Israel, and other nations where graduates and persons aged over 18 serve compulsorily in the military for 1 year. Objective observers commend this as a strategy for building discipline, confidence, and resilience in the service personnel. It is a commitment to country because it builds character and the good sense to look out for one another. It instills accountability. Such a national service nurtures leaders, and my God, we need leaders in our young men and women now more than ever. Leaders, not followers, who would ensure the right thing is done where and when it must be done.
Well, there's also been talk about artificial intelligence. We're hearing from the former rector of GAMPA, Professor Stephen Adai, who has called for the inclusion of artificial intelligence as a learning material for students. We can bring in our Kwesi Kwarting, is the spokesperson for the Education Ministry, joins us on the line right now. Thank you, sir, for your time here on News Night. Sir Sam Jonah says that the decision by the government to spend 68.5 million to buy past questions for the WASI exams for 2020-2021, he believes is a significant first low because of the foundation's delays for these students to cut corners. What's your reaction to that?
Well, thank you very much. And Evans, good evening to you and your cherished listeners. For us in the Ministry of Education, we take this as, of course, a final call to reposition Ghana's education to be able to align with what pertains within the 21st century. And holistically, that is where we want to premise the call. But I do not necessarily believe that there is any correlation between, for instance, students using past questions as a guide for studies and, for instance, learning outcomes or quality of education. These are two separate, independent conversations that we can have and still attain or achieve the results that we want. Because as I speak, and Evans, you are in the media, the conversation and the message that we have been pushing and driving has always been reposition Ghana's education to be able to fit into what pertains within the 21st century. Today, we have been talking about STEM. We are talking about building STEM academies. We are talking about operationalizing STEM schools at the senior high schools. We are talking about creating career pathways. So for us in the Ministry of Education, holistically, these are even initiatives that we've already undertaken to be able to reposition Ghana's education.
And as you talk about the 21st century, STEM, etc., in the 21st century, government should not be spending money buying past questions for students.
I'm not sure the challenge or the difficulty has to do with the fact that government paid for that past questions, or the problem has to do with the fact that students, whether or not they need past questions. I need to get the distinction, because whichever way, even international exams, looking at IELTS, looking at TOEFL, I mean, you may get your producers to do extensive research there. they have question banks which guides them in terms of revision purposes, in terms of referral purposes, to be able to guide them and situate whatever they are learning within the context of the syllabus. So it just serves as a guide for practical purposes. And if you care to know, you are aware of the recent initiative of the one student, one tablet, which of course all forms part of the holistic agenda to be able to transform Ghana's education to fit into what it is in the 21st century. We are no longer doing printed past questions. Essentially, even if we are going to have past questions, what it will mean is that there will be question banks that will be uploaded on the tablet. So
as a policy, that has been phased out now. Government is moving away from this policy of investing in past questions. Is that what you're communicating now?
If I heard you right, you mentioned WASI 2020 and 2021. If I heard you right.
True.
It means that 2022 government did not spend money to buy past questions. 2023 same as such. So I'm not allowed at the moment to speak on policy decisions because obviously it's beyond my pay scale. But there wouldn't be any need for you to print past questions if at the end of the day you introduce one student, one tablet where you can upload these past questions or on. Again, even if you want to situate the conversation into an arena repositioning Ghana's education, you can talk of course, even beyond the STEM schools and the career pathways. We are talking about doing pre-engineering programs, even at the senior high schools. We are looking at engineering programs at the senior high schools. We are looking at biomedical sciences at the STEM schools. These are all part of the career pathway that we've created, even up to the lower level where we have junior high school model STEM schools, which have been operationalized, and even the STEM academies, which is starting from the basic level up to the senior high school level.
And the bigger concern today, though, was the fact that our educational structure as it is still training our students who focus more on memorizing than understanding and comprehending the content, but also able to articulate the subject based on their own understanding of the complex matters involved in then thinking through the problem. How is the Education Ministry fixing this?
Yeah, even I think it's even an admission that even the Minister for Education has even made it on bigger platforms. If you recall, during his meeting at the UNESCO, at the UN, he's made it very clear that we cannot memorize our way out of poverty. And of course, he also re-emphasized that you cannot be even training students in 19th century building and expect a 21st century outcome. So we admit that yes, as a country, in terms of our educational landscape, we had a systemic challenge.
And what is the minister doing about it now?
I was coming there, so if you had allowed me to land. I mean, it is the more reason why even at the basic level, in terms of curriculum reforms, we've introduced the standard-based curriculum, which focuses on more problem-solving, critical thinking, and at the end of the day, having education having relevance on socio-economic transformation. Of course, you move beyond that. Even at the high school level, the junior high school level, we've also introduced what we call the common core curriculum. Recently, I watched an interview where your station interviewed the boss of NACA, where he also spoke about even plans to implement the senior high school standard curriculum, which of course looks more into science, technology, engineering, and math. Today we are having a conversation about building a creative arts school, STEM schools. We have STEM innovation running. So for me, I mean, these are discussions where even the ministry has even taken initiative beyond where the concern that has been raised. Of course, these concerns holistically are good calls, but I mean, for us in the ministry, we even envisaged it earlier and admitted same even within the public domain and also on international platforms. And we have even taken practical steps to reposition Ghana's education because look, I agree. During the first industrial revolution up to the third industrial revolution, we were just at the consuming end. But today, we are talking about robotics, we are talking about Internet of Things, we are talking about artificial intelligence, which are not just conversations, but they are practical things happening in our school. Are you not aware? that this school, I think Efia Kobi, recently did a drone that could fly. We have STEM innovation recently. Students from Obuasi Tech designing problem-solving materials and tools. For instance, I think they did the dialysis machine. So we move beyond, some of these concerns. Yes, they are legitimate, they are valid. But if you look at the initiatives and the interventions and the drive and the pathway that the Ministry of Education has taken, it's something that we've even moved beyond there. So.
Okay, Chrissy Kwasi, thank you very much. And he is the spokesperson for the Education Ministry.
And we'll stay a while longer on the education front because we've been hearing from the Education Minister himself, Dr. Yawase Aduchum. He's also announced plans to make senior high school, that's SHS education, compulsory, and the free SHS bill introduced in Parliament. If passed, the bill will require all eligible students to complete SHS, marking a significant step toward universal access to secondary education. He's been speaking at the National Tertiary Education Conference held at the University of Ghana.
Look at junior high school transition rate in Ghana today. Last year, 95% of students in the northern region move on to junior high school to high school. 94% of students in the northeast and savannah moved on from junior high school to high school. 92% of students in upper east moved on from junior high school to high school. Upper west, 89%. That is the lowest in the north. But the lowest in the north is higher than the rate of any of the regions in the south. There's a growing trend here where there's a widening gap between the north and the south in terms of participation in secondary education. The north, all the regions together, are ahead of the whole country. So if you heard about the bill in Parliament about the free secondary education bill, the goal is to ensure that we create a free, compulsory, universal secondary education regime in Ghana. It's a very important aspect of the bill. That it will not be something that children who are not 18 have a choice in. Say that I'm not going to secondary school and I'm going to stay at home.
Well, Dr. Oseyeduchum adds that the government is determined to hit 40% gross tertiary enrollment by 2030 to improve socio-economic development.
I think when it comes to research, and the research is clear that higher education is critical for national development and transformation. It is known, for example, that a 10% increase in gross tertiary enrollment ratio leads to 2 to 4% GDP growth and 5.3% increase in labor productivity. So when you increase gross tertiary enrollment ratio, you lay foundation for socio-economic transformation of your nation. Therefore, our government is determined by 2030 we will have a gross tertiary enrollment ratio of 40%. If we're able to attain this, and if we're able to provide quality tertiary education and relevant tertiary education, we'll be moving ourselves into the higher income bracket of nations around the world.
That's the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Oseyeduchum. Now, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfrey Aboadame, is tonight moving to have arbitration in all contractual disputes involving the state dealt with here in Ghana. Currently, disputes between the state and companies that are being arbitrated are handled outside of Ghana, especially in Western countries. While citing the vulnerability of arbitration to fraud and abuse, Godfrey Aboadame says efforts are underway to amend the Contract Act to make Ghana the seat of all arbitration involving the state. He's been speaking at the first ever Public Sector Lawyers Conference in Accra.
We must reform the laws governing arbitration and the institution of civil claims against the state, whilst taking a critical look at contracting and contract management on behalf of the state. Mr. President, as I recently noted at the African Regional Forum at the International Bar Association Conference held in Mexico City, Mexico, we cannot discount the prejudice Ghana and the whole of Africa in general often suffers in international arbitration fora. It is quite curious that in some instances, companies which fail to make out any claim in our domestic courts succeed in extremely huge international arbitration actions, sometimes mounted on the back of contracts which have failed to receive the relevant statutory and constitutional approvals of the countries in which they operate. This phenomenon is not because of a weakness of judicial systems of African countries, or indeed Ghana's, but simply because of the nature of international arbitration, particularly the the secrecy of proceedings, flexibility of rules, and the finality or non-appealability of awards, which I've just referred to. It should not be misconstrued as saying that Ghana or any African nation should shy away from international arbitration. Far from that. However, the vulnerability of arbitration to abuse and fraud highlights the necessity for more robust safeguards in commercial disputes involving state parties, where the hard purse of the nation is at stake. We must boost the integrity of our legal systems by setting up fair and efficient mechanisms for commercial dispute adjudication and strengthening the systems for the conduct of arbitration in our respective countries. But I still recognize that there's a need to make further reform to the pursuit of arbitration against the state. Thus, I recently presented to Cabinet a proposed amendment to the State Property and Contract Act of 1960 to compel all contracts involving the state and its agencies as parties to not only stipulate Ghana law as a governing law, but also to have Ghana as a seat of arbitration, and with the ADR Center in Ghana being the venue for the arbitration.
Well, the Attorney General says Ghana's economy would have collapsed if some arbitration challenges against the state succeeded. According to him, the state would have paid in excess of $9 billion in international arbitral awards, with about 16 trillion cedis in local actions filed against the state.
Can bring the economy of a developing country as Ghana to its knees. In point of fact, over the past 4 years, the value of arbitral claims against the Republic has been in excess of $9 billion. And I cite a few to illustrate the point. The financial claim by ENI Vitor against Ghana, which was initially $7 billion and subsequently reduced to $15 billion after challenging the cost of proceedings by Ghana. In fact, any of these amounts, $7 billion or $950 million, could have collapsed the Ghanaian economy. By the grace of God, this financial claim was recently dismissed in its entirety by the International Arbitral Tribunal. Cassius Valley's Limited claim against the government of Ghana has a value of about $300 million. GCNet's arbitral claim involves a claim of over 4 billion Ghana cedis, the equivalent of about $250 million. The recently filed inland arbitration claim against the government of Ghana also involves a claim of over $320 million. These are just a sample of a few of the international arbitration claims against Ghana. Domestically, there have been claims in Ghana in excess of over 15 trillion Ghana cedis, successfully defended by the Office of Attorney General against the state. I know this conference will be a seminal step in improving the legal frameworks within the public sector and the interactions with public-private partnerships.
Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo says he's committed to ensuring lawyers in the public sector are well-resourced to deliver on their responsibilities.
My government's commitment to the legal sector extends to the development of infrastructure, as evidenced by the construction of 100 courthouses across the country and the development of 121 residential units nationwide for judges, alongside the construction of the magnificent 10-story law house in Accra, which will soon house the Office of the Attorney General. We're also undertaking the historic endeavor of calling some 4,500 lawyers to the bar since October 2021, doubling the legal workforce in our country. Looking ahead, I'm inspired by the Attorney General's vision for a law house in each region, creating dedicated spaces for public legal services across Ghana. This vision of a strong, united legal framework is the legacy we aim to build. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the bar, as public sector lawyers, the path we walk is one that demands courage, commitment, integrity, and a ceaseless pursuit of excellence. This conference is a testimony to the value we place on your contributions and the recognition that without a strong legal backbone, our public service cannot function at its highest potential. Government is committed to supporting your development, ensuring that our legal teams are well prepared to face the challenges of our time.
And that there is President Akufo-Addo. And if I want to take you to the Wutusenya East district, where we know cholera has been on the rampage there. 5 people, died. 100 suspected cases were recorded in that particular municipality and has spread across the entire area there. But we're hearing some good news tonight because the Wutusenya East Health Directorate is reporting to us tonight that the cholera cases there are beginning to decline. And the Municipal Health Director, Dr. Stanley Edu, indicates that the 26 cases have been discharged so far.
So far, the number of cases have declined. Just like I mentioned, even yesterday we discharged about 26 cases. And if you go and see the wards are being decongested because we are discharging a lot of cases and we are not having the cases rushing in the way they were rushing in before. This is because the sensitization in the communities is ongoing. We are meeting opinion leaders, we are in churches, we are in mosques, and we are spreading the news of prevention, cholera prevention. And so I think that the people of the Wutusenya East and surrounding districts have really received the message, and that is what is leading to the decline in the rate of infection. Any cause is contamination of our food or water with the bacteria that causes cholera. We call it vibrio cholera, or contact with someone who has had or has been exposed to the organism.
We also learned that part of the problem, MFI, is the cut in the flow of clean potable water due to the Kaswa-Winneba road construction. We've also been hearing from the MC for the area.
Yes, that's Anita Lavobo Emisa. She explains measures put in place to contain the spread.
The Municipal Assembly, in collaboration with Health Directorate, it's been phenomenal in a sense that most of the PPEs that they need is being supplied. Education is still ongoing, and then disinfection. Even this morning, it is going on at the polyclinic itself. Now we are disinfecting all taxis that comes in with the patients as well. So there has been a lot of interventions. Sanitation issues, we are also on course. In fact, we realized that some of the areas that the patients were coming from was because of water. So the Assembly has started distributing water to such places. The protocols in terms of washing hands with soap and the running water, and then eating hot meals. These are the things that we are telling people about. And the treatment is free. So whoever feels a bit uneasy should come to the hospital, and then he or she will be taken care of.
And there are more suspected cases being reported in that general area in the central region. If you go to the Wutusenya West, we're in the east, 14 suspected cases there now being reported. If you go to the Gomwa East, there are now 26 cases there, and all the district assemblies there, including the MCEs, are working with the health director to try and get it under control. We keep a close eye on this. If you're in that particular part of town, you want to get in touch with us, 055-1111-997. And George Wafe is joining me with the latest from the world of business. And George just last week returned from the U.S.
Last week, no, last night.
Last night?
Oh,
you returned this week?
This week, yeah.
Yeah, this week, yes. And you would have been there today for the elections, but you're not. Just before today, it was pretty intense in terms of the campaigning. We've also seen some violence in some parts of the United States already. And why am I highlighting this? Of course, when Ghana is going to elections, we know that United States just last 2 weeks issuing that notice and policy directive that they are putting visa restrictions on those who undermine democracy. The question is,
are we
African
do the
countries,
same for them as
yes,
well?
that's a question that we legitimately must be asked, because there's a real potential for post-election violence in the U.S. because of how close this election is going to be.
And even you're right on that about this election being very close, because every report you monitor, even the poll experts are saying this is going to be a close election. One, I hope I got the description right. Is it a county or a small state that did an early vote? The results were 3 at each for the candidates as well. So it gives us a picture about how close these elections will be, and that is why the stakes are quite high.
Have you noticed also that it is a battle between a vice president and a former president, just like we're having in Ghana here as well?
How the campaign shifted from Joe Biden to now the vice president about she being a failure because she failed to act, and the response to was that
so whatever the
she wasn't the president at that
we
time.
Hear from the MPP saying, well, this is an indication of what may happen locally, depending on the outcome. We may hear from the NDC too saying, so assuming that
Donald Trump is a former president, right?
It means that they will
or
say
he's
the
been
former
there,
president
former president John Mahama.
If Kamala wins,
so,
the vice president is staying.
so very interesting, very interesting. And the thing is that you want to join us at 12 midnight, because we're going to bring you special coverage, bringing the Ghanaian perspective to the elections there. We're going to be joined by more than a dozen Ghanaians living in the U.S. and U.S. citizens themselves. Some of them are in queues voting. Will join us for some analysis.
Also, as well,
yes, exactly. And many of them have been speaking today as part of the preparation for the show tonight. Voted Trump.
I was shocked when I heard you talking.
Voted Trump, and their reasons are fascinating. Many of them, and I want to hear that tonight when we speak to them. We'll also be joined by Sekun Nkrumah. You know, he's stayed in the U.S. He just returned recently, and he'll bring us some perspective to this. Of course, Dr. Chese Kanku will also join us, and some great analysis, tracking what this will mean for you, depending on who wins tonight. Our economy will be affected one way or the other, depending on who wins. We're going to illustrate all that for you when you join us from 12. Stay with us here on your election headquarters. Joy.
Well, events coming up, energy and automobile sectors drive dollar demand as Bank of Ghana steps up support to help deal with the recent pressure on the local currency. And Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam directed the City Company of Ghana and other sector players to strictly comply with the cash waterfall mechanism, insisting there's no room for non-compliance. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business kingdom. Books and stationery, Sinterstanks and Pepsodent, Herbal and Charcoal. You welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, demand from firms in the energy and automobile sectors are currently driving dollar demand for this week. Now, that's according to market report from some of the commercial banks. Details in this report.
The report showed that the demand is coming from firms that are important to support the operations as well as fuel for power generation, whilst in the automobile space, dealers are bringing in parts for their business as well as those that are trying to get new models for their customers. Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana has also been increasing the amount of dollars that it supplies to the market as well as clear the backlog of demand. The central bank, through its 7-day auction on Monday, sold about $50 million to the market. However, only $41 million was taken up by the commercial banks. These dollars were sold at a rate between 16 cedis, 30 pesos, and 16 cedis, 37 pesos. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Nes Addison, recently assured businesses that there is no need for them to panic in terms of current pressure on the cedi. The governor maintained that it has the required support to stabilize the local currency.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, commercial banks have revealed that the review in the cash reserve ratio is hurting their operations badly. The Bank of Ghana earlier this year increased the amount of reserves that banks can hold at the central bank for every cedi or foreign currency that they are holding. Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, Jonah, noted that it is also affecting their ability to lend to some critical sectors.
We have.
And sorry for our challenge to bring you that sound. Then Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam has directed the Electricity Company of Ghana and other players in the sector to strictly comply with the cash flow mechanism. The program seeks to ensure equitable distribution of monthly collections of Electricity Company of Ghana's revenue for all sector players. Speaking in an engagement in Washington, D.C., USA, the Finance Minister noted that there is no room for compromising on this directive.
We won't compromise any action that would drill the operationalization of the cash waterfall mechanism. So I insist all collections made by ECG must go to the cash waterfall system to be redistributed to all stakeholders in the value chain. This is very important for us because people have lost confidence in our ability to manage the energy sector because of the financial issues. So let's use this opportunity to rebuild that confidence, not just in our partners, but also the investor community. We are not going to get that investment into this sector if we just cannot guarantee that we will pay for those resources that will be invested in this sector. And the only way is to show that we have a systematic, comprehensive approach to addressing the financial issues. And that is why the cash waterfall mechanism is so central to the future of the energy sector.
Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. Let's get to our earlier story where the Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks is explaining how the increase in the cash reserve requirements is hurting the operation. Let's hear from John Iwa, who's Chief Executive of the Association of Banks.
We have not sat aloof and said, oh, that is, we raised our hands and therefore the impact is gone. I've just said that banks have been affected negatively, significantly. You understand? Significantly negative.
Ability to lend has been a critical factor.
It is still a significant negative factor within the industry where the cash reserve requirement is. I can tell you that for sure.
Some banks are now seeing whether they should even do away with all their effects and all the rest. That has implications in terms of interest income and all those things.
Of course, banks have various ways of responding to regulatory measures. Those are avenues that we don't touch because we do not tell banks how to run their banks. What we do is when issues that are of industry significance come around, we coalesce and then we speak to the stakeholder. Our major stakeholder is the Bank of Ghana. And that's
Jonah Ware, Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks. Now, pension funds manager Petra has unveiled a new mobile application to support moves to boost financial literacy among the youth. The application is expected to provide convenience way of investing and checking performance of the funds of the various schemes provided by the firm. Let's hear from Kofi Finn. He's the managing director of the company.
As a business, as Petra, our mission is to partner people to achieve their dream. And at this point in time, this app, we believe, is the primary way we can do that. We've got financial planners, we've got financial advisors, we engage with companies to discuss the financial well-being of their employees. But this app becomes the primary way in which we deal with individuals directly. And at the end, everybody has a dream. We've started by trying to solve the dream of retirement. And a key part of all of this is that very quickly, once we started dealing with the retirement dreams of people, we realize that that dream is far away. There are other dreams that are much more near term. They need to get married, they're going to have to want a house to live in, they'll further their education, buy a car, and all of those things require financing. In fact, there are very few things that you can do without money. Our goal is to make sure that you do it in a way that is planned and that is responsible. So you can achieve every single one of those things without putting yourself at undue risk or making you uncomfortable. And in this app, you can do that.
Kofi Finn is managing director of pensions fund management firm Petra. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Back to you, Evans.
And we can do sports now. Hello, Mr. Kranti.
Let's go straight into the stories. And BetPower, an online gaming company, has announced plans to invest a minimum 7 million Ghana cedis into elite men's and women's football competitions in Ghana. In 2D Muyelo, the managing director of Mcheko Limited, the operators of Betway, disclosed this as a press conference earlier today. The amount will be invested through the locker room bonus, a support package originally instituted to reward players in the Ghana Premier League and now extended to cover the Women's FA Cup.
We have reached a partnership to extend what we have done with GFA by again supporting the Premier League with this initiative called the Locker Room Bonus, actually extending the same to women. With the Women FA Cup, we will be giving to all women in the squad list of the winning team 400 cedis, which is the same amount that we will be giving as well to the men that will be winning a game in the Premier League during the 2024-2025 season.
Di Muyelo, the managing director of Mcheko Limited, operators of BetPower. And there will be UEFA Champions League action later tonight. Match day 4 action. Real Madrid will take on AC Milan. That is our featured game on Hits 103.9 FM. That's all for sports. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much. This is your election headquarters.
Election Headquarters is brought to you by Petrosol Platinum Energy, Energizing Dreams, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants (CIMA), and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants (AICPA), together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental, Wellness and Beauty, Shopbox Technologies, a convenient service, Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging the gap for positive youth development, and Syntex Tanks. A year strong, a year tough.
Republican presidential nomination. Kamala Harris has now earned enough delegate votes to become the Democratic nominee.
This is a brand new presidential race.
As the U.S. goes to the polls to elect their next leader, who is winning, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table.
Kamala Harris is a radical left Marxist, rated even worse than crazy Bernie Sanders or Pocahontas.
Your election headquarters, Joy News, brings you a special coverage of the U.S. elections on Wednesday, the 6th of November from 12 a.m. to 9 a.m. on TV, radio, Joy 99.7 FM, and online at myjoyonline.com. America decides on Joy News. In-depth coverage of America's big day.
And indeed, it starts at 12 a.m., but we are starting now here on radio because Americans have been voting. It's decision day in America. The choice is a stark one. Either you are voting for Trump or you are voting for Kamala. And both, we know, stand for two very distinct, different things. NMFR Power is here with me as we look forward and look ahead to the outcomes. But also joining us tonight from the USA is Associate Professor of Digital Media Studies at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore in the state of Maryland. Dr. Michael Sowonu, thank you very much for connecting with us here on Newsnight.
Thank you, Evans, for having me.
Great that you could join us. And give me a sense of how today had played out from morning.
The U.S. election is a little different from what we have in Ghana. So in Ghana, voting is reserved for voting day. Even early voting that is given to journalists sometimes is not given all the time by the Electoral Commission. In the U.S., they have different parts. They have absentee voting. They have a mail ballot. So on the election day, it's a little calmer. Except places like I live in the Eastern Shore, where University of Maryland Eastern Shore is. It's a very calm place. This area doesn't have a lot of people, so you will not have the things you're hearing about LA, the bomb scares and the rest. But generally, the elections are calmer. Haven't covered elections in Ghana for more than 3 times. I think this is much, much calmer. People walk, they stand in lines and go and vote, and they are willing to tell you who they voted for without any anger. So it's been really calm. A few of my students have gone and voted and come back. Some are still in line and trying to skip classes for that. So, yeah, that's the general feeling.
80+ million people have already cast their ballot, and that's the point you're making there. But as we build up into the results and polling closing, first, as we know, this will happen around the East Coast. We know that there are some battleground states that there's a lot of heat, a lot of focus on. Rust Belt comes to mind, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Everybody else is fighting over that. Give us a sense of what's at play here and the path to 270 for both Donald and Harris.
Yes, you see the Electoral College system here in the United States makes elections a little interesting for a Ghanaian like me, because I haven't been here for a very long time. But you win a state, you get a point that moves you forward. And over time, the blue and the red blocks are clear. They know what they're going in for. They have states that they're entrenched, they know they're winning. The swing states like Pennsylvania, where everything is, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is going to be where we will have to see much of the action today. So they are going to count fast. They have promised to count faster than before, and they will have the say generally, or Michigan. But don't forget, Sir John, the former General Secretary of the NPP, once said that voters are like, they are more dangerous than ghosts.
Fear delegates.
We are fear delegates, and so you could have a blue state falling for a red state, and you could have a red state falling. Usually, these analyses we do not put that into contest. The fact that a blue state can fall,
just
for
like
a red,
we saw Jonah
and a red state can
in the
fall.
last elections that has voted for a decade.
And that is why we overly look at the swing states and what they bring to the table.
Let me ask you very,
decided.
very quickly, for many of us Ghanaians, why should we care about the U.S. elections?
We should care because much of our trading partners and immigration between Ghana and the United States is big. For instance, I'm one of them. I have family, my children and wife is in America, and I have worked all my life in Ghana. I chose one day to get a job in the U.S. directly, and I was hired directly from the U.S. If the U.S. economy is good, everyone else is good, because they are the only country that's quite open to immigration in the way they do it. There are other countries that are running out of human beings, like Japan, and they're never opening up for the pathways to integration that America has. And I think that apart from that, America has given us projects that we need to look up for. Like we have been on the Agua, we have other projects currently going on with the U.S. government, and you want to see what is up for that. Are we going to get that? Don't forget that Donald Trump wanted to repatriate some Ghanaians, and when the nation was not prepared to receive them, his government put some blocks in the way of immigration for Ghanaians and government workers. So there is a lot at stake for everyone. For me, the most important thing is the dollar. So we're struggling with the dollar. If the parity rate under Trump, it makes dollar more difficult to get for any other nation like it did in his first term, that will mean a lot of hassle for us as we are nearing $17 cedis for a dollar. So any plan that is not thinking about our welfare can really hurt us. So we should really care.
Doc, thank you very much. And Doc will join us at 12 midnight as we join many Americans across the United States covering this. One of the key individuals we have on the ground for us, reporting on this for us, is my colleague KMJ, and joins us on the line right now. He hosts the Prime Morning on Joy Prime. And KMJ, you've been to some of the polling stations. Tell us the experience.
All right, Evans, good evening to everyone doing the listening right now. So, yes, it heated up like we anticipated. A lot of the people who earlier voted have shared the excitement about having the opportunity to vote. Others are also doing the same today as the general elections, it's underway. I have been to 2 places, and I've been to Corinne, which is here in Ohio. I've also been to Fairfield, is the fire department area where I have been as well. And as at the time I got there this morning, it was very calm. People are coming in and out. The officer over there I spoke to indicated that it always begins, slowly in the morning and in the afternoon, but later, but in the evening, around 3 p.m., it gets a big packed up. And so, yes, the people are excited about it. One thing that I also noticed was the fact that some of the voters actually came in with their families, some came with their partners, some came in with, their children and all of that, even though the children who are not up to over 18 years cannot vote, but they were there to support them in their tasks and all that. I saw one person who came in a black T-shirt, a lady who came in a black T-shirt that has Kamala written in front of it. I don't know if that is allowed in our voting, exercise in Ghana, but she boldly walked into the voting area with that T-shirt that had Kamala written, in the front of it. And one thing I also noticed was that as at the time that I got there, there was no police officer. I mean, it was just the voters, the election personnel who were in charge, and no police officer until a little over an hour that I saw a police car compact over there in the first place that I went, Corinne. At Fairfield, was also very calm. People at Fairfield were a bit higher than what I saw in Corinth in terms of the number of people that were coming in to vote. So far, so good. Yes. It's been calm. It's been good experience. It's going to be ending around 7:30, as I was told by the officer that I spoke to. And when they are done, they are going to make sure that all the scanned vote will be sent technology-wise to the quarters where it's supposed to, and then they gather all the other papers and then send them also as well. So yeah, so far so good.
Thank you very much. We're counting to post closing and getting you the first few results coming in. We believe just around 1 or 2 a.m. we should be getting a sense of some of the first results coming in, and we'll be bringing you the very latest with analysis, of course. MFA Pao, you should definitely be looking forward to something. Do you have a horse in the race?
Not at all.
You
Not
must
at all.
have a preference.
But I'm just hoping that we'll see a first female president of the U.S. But really, I'm seeing a Trump victory. But let's see how it goes.
I have a view on that too. But I'll disclose it at 12 a.m.
We'll see.
I'll disclose it at 12 a.m. And by the way, I was just listening to this Prof. Lynchman, who has been predicting U.S. elections. He's predicted it correctly. For the last 10 elections, he's predicted 9 correctly. 9 correctly. Exactly. And he says Kamala will win. And so here you go.
I'll be very excited if we see a first female, though.
Okay. Well, listen, you want to join us. Very exciting indeed. And it has implications. You know why many people in the black community, they like Trump? Because he is opposed to LGBTQ1. It sort of reflects our values here. And also the subject around abortions has become an issue. If you're a Christian, he's a Catholic. So very interesting times indeed, and we'll look forward to the outcome. And guess who's joining us? Adobia is here. Adobia, do you have a horse in the U.S. race?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, you don't care who wins.
I mean, it plays a role, but it's not.
It will affect your pocket somehow.
Sometimes.
Yes, okay. Well, what are you talking about tonight?
Now, let me just find out from you the things you see on social media. Does it in any way inform the decisions you make when it comes to elections?
Oh, that's interesting.
No.
I think I'm a wrong person to ask because I don't want to disclose the fact that I don't remember the last time I voted. But if I'm voting, maybe if it is verified, maybe.
Okay, we want to talk about that. How social media can influence people's decisions when it comes to elections.
But I think the research shows that people actually vote based on what they see. And that's why states invest quite heavily in manipulating the outcome of the elections, because they can control what you see and then how influences you.
That's true.
Yeah.
I love your glasses, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. You want to get onto our Facebook right now and watch Adobia's glasses. And she's here with the lads with... Geek Squad. I mean, exactly. The spectacles confuse me. Yeah, but yeah, just check it out. Maybe you'll get the point.